Yep, 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 yep.
Is that your intro?
Yeah. What is up, Robot Wars fans? Hardcore Kid here with a very special edition of the Hardcore Podcast. Joining me, he's finally made his big return. It is Anderson.
Hello, YouTube, back again. It's nice to be back.
And making his second appearance on the podcast, we have Rossetti's Replicas.
It's Rossetti's Wars 2, Electric Boogaloo.
So, Season 10 has ended, and now we're waiting very impatiently for Series 11. Still no word yet. But until then, we're going to be taking a look at some of the other Robot Wars matches from the International Series. Yes, there wasn't just a UK series. There was a US series, a German series, a Dutch series, and some of those complete knockoffs that you see over in China and Beijing and wherever. King of Bots, which is a complete BattleBots clone, but you know what? I like it.
I mean, they get more than 4 fights in an hour, so...
Oh, hell yeah. They got like 6 or 7, so... Yeah. Plus, they don't have commercials, so they have plenty of time to get their stuff going over there.
Plus, it's China.
Yeah.
China's awesome, so...
I'm living on the Chinese rock. So, we're going to be, until Series 11 comes along, we're going to start off with some of the international series, and we're going to be starting off with the US series, aka Robot Wars Extreme Warriors, which aired on TNN, which is now Spike TV, or at least it was Spike TV, since they're closing the channel now. Idiots. Yeah, well. So, this first episode was first broadcast on August 20th, 2001. The first episode of Extreme Warriors, and of all episodes to start with, the House Robot Rebellion. The one tournament that is usually the closer for most of these events, mainly because they don't want to kill all the house robots, and this was the first episode they decided to air. I don't know.
I guess the goal is to market the house bots, and did that.
And they were very successful with that in this episode, weren't they?
Yeah, I guess it was also maybe done because of the craziness. Like, you know, people, you know, if it's a new market especially, there'll be, you know, you don't want to put something silly, you don't want to put something dull on, you want something that's like over the top and crazy, and I guess the house robots just breaking all the rules, this one. But the thing is, if you've never watched Robot Wars before, you wouldn't know that the house robots leaving their CPZ and having all this freedom was an unnatural thing.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense.
I don't know. And, but believe it or not, the first event that was recorded in the studio was the U.S. Championship, which turned out to be a complete clusterfuck. Since it was 4 6-way melees. A lot of the robots either broke down really quickly, so we didn't get to see much of them. So I guess the producers decided, you know what, let's start off by introducing some of these bots, and you know what, a lot of the machines in this episode we'd be seeing in quite a few of the other episodes anyway, like the Tag Team and the War of Independence, so hey, this is a good way to introduce them, I guess. Little interesting thing about Extreme Warriors, and if you guys thought that the wrestling gimmick for the UK Extreme was very over-the-top and cheesy, just wait until you watch this episode. I mean, it is completely WWE meets Robot Wars.
We've got Mick Foley, the host, for a start.
Hey, yeah, let's talk about some of the new presenters we got in this episode, starting with the hardcore legend, the real master of mayhem, Mick Foley. What do you guys think of Mick Foley?
Oh, he's a great choice for this. And apparently, like, even behind the scenes, he was, like, really engaged with the robots and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, this first season, he was, like, really into it, and he was just being so over-the-top and wacky, and...
Oh, I have a wrestling reference. I give him positive 5 stars. How'd I do?
It's a good start.
Good start. I mean,
What do you think of Mick Foley, Anderson?
Oh God, I love Mick Foley.
Yeah.
To the point that I remember when I first ever watched the US series back when it was it must have been like 3-4 years ago now.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I actually fangasmed. It was brilliant. It was like, yes! But, and it's really quite surprising because, usually when you get obviously, one, he's a perfect choice, hardcore wrestler, known for violence and mayhem, and that's what Robot was all about. But it's usually when they get like a celebrity involved in one of these things, they either don't know what they're doing or they don't really have much of an interest, But Foley, like you said, he was well up for it. He was in there. He was always intrigued, interested in what was going on. He always treated Roboteers with respect. Obviously, he had a laugh with them, but he did know that, these guys have put a lot of hard work into these machines. And it was a nice, refreshing change. I don't think they could have really picked anyone better than Foley for this, to be honest, at least at the time.
And a little interesting joke he had right after the Tricera Bot Green Mouse match, but he's talking to Evan and he says, "You've been involved with robots almost your entire life. In fact, when you were a baby, you drank out of the Row-Bottle." Little Row-Bottle podcast shout out right there.
Yeah, who would have guessed that was the worst way he could hurt me?
And yeah, Mick Foley, he was a damn good host, and unfortunately there was only 2 seasons for him to be in. But in those 2 seasons he was in, he was really good. And I actually heard this recently, but for the Nickelodeon series they got Dave Azer, who's known for a lot of shows on Nickelodeon. And when he was out there, they had to edit a lot of his stuff out because he kept botching everything. And the crowd booed him like crazy and were chanting, "Foley, Foley, Foley," because they like Mick Foley better. Who the hell is this geek who's doing the hosting? Yeah.
I mean, it was a good choice to correlate it to wrestling. I think that's the best way that could have gotten an American audience on board.
Would you have seen Triple H hosting this?
This comes out onto the balcony, spits water at the fans, yeah.
Hey, extinguish the flames.
In Robot Wars, it's time to play the game, guys. So, get out there and I'm like, it would be fucking awful. It wouldn't be good at all.
So that covers Mick Foley. Now let's talk about one of the more controversial commentators he's in the Robot Wars fandom, Stefon Frank as commentary, filling in for Jonathan Pierce. What do you think of him?
He divides Robot Wars fans, I feel, because half the people I speak to either really like him or really don't like him. And unfortunately, I don't want to sound horrible here, but I'm more on the side of not being a fan of his. He seems too forced. Does that make any sense? Like, it doesn't seem natural to him. He feels like he's forcing himself to sound excited and interested. It doesn't quite work for me. That's just me, though.
It seems like
it does. It seems like a construct of what British people imagine a dumb American to be like.
And if you watch the old Grand Champions episodes when they were uploaded onto YouTube way back in 2006, people were like, "Oh, God, who is this? Bring back Jonathan Pierce. Who is this Americunt?" Yeah.
We're gonna need 18 plus now.
I like him. I like him because he fits the whole wrestling gimmick idea for this. He almost kind of reminds me of Jim Ross in a bit. He's got a little gravelly voice to it and such. And believe it or not, Stefon Frank has actually done some voice acting work outside of Robot Wars. He does the voice of Mr. Robinson on The Amazing World of Gumball right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he also sang the Fat Controller song on a particular show about talking trains. I've never heard of it. Have you guys heard of it?
No, I haven't. I do think, though, he does, I don't know about, we have channels over here which show American television programs. Like, there's one called E4, which shows basically a bunch of American TV shows, and I'm pretty certain he does the voice for that channel. Like, he's the one who, tells you what's coming on next and all that stuff.
Yeah, he actually has his own YouTube channel where he uploads a lot of promos for stuff. Like, I think he's done some promos for cartoons, and he actually did BattleBots at a couple points, so that was pretty cool. But I know Anderson doesn't really like him that much. I like him. I think he can be pretty funny at some points, and he definitely has some moments.
It's not like I don't like it. It's more of a case of I don't think... It's hard to explain. Like, it's not like I can't. He's not listenable. If that makes sense. Like, you can happily listen to him. I just don't think he was ideal for the role. If that makes any sense.
I mean, I loved his enthusiasm, but he didn't always seem like he knew what was going on. Like, a lot of times he was guessing, and I would have preferred someone who knew what was going on.
Still, it's better than Ahmed Zappa.
Oh my God! Could you imagine Ahmet Zappa's commentary? That would be amazing. I'm tired of these two. Bring me more robots.
That's all his commentary was, and I swear I couldn't understand a freaking word of it.
I will say I would much prefer them over the BattleBots commentators they got. I mean, God bless Kenny, but he's just not good. Speaking of not good, let's talk about our pit reporter, Rebecca Grant. What do you guys think of her?
Too cheesy American. That was kind of the point, but you know, Jesus Christ on a bicycle. It is. It's one of those. She's like, oh really? Come on, you can do better than this, surely, America. You got much better people than this. What's this? It's just, I don't enjoy Rebecca Grant at all, I'm afraid.
How about you, Ian?
It's like,
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like her job was to just let them talk, and she did that pretty well. What's her resume?
I don't know. I'm gonna check her wiki page now.
what annoyed me about her as well is, like, for example, you know, the War of Independence episode, which obviously we're doing another time. Now, we usually, in the UK series, whether it was Jonathan Pierce or Craig or whatever, they would occasionally drop a little hint about, like, for example, in the European Championship, they announced that Black Hole was the winner of the first German Robot Wars. And that was a little interesting tidbit. You know, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. You know, maybe we should look out for this machine. But when it came to the War of Independence, like, despite the fact that we had a multi-time semi-finalist was born again, and a former grand finalist, and a former grand finalist and multi-time semi-finalist as well, in Pussycat, and it wasn't mentioned. It was literally a case of, oh, this robot here has never done anything in this series because it's a brand new series. What do you make you think you have a chance against him? It's like, oh, the former grand finalist. Do your research, woman.
I don't know, like, if they had a British wrestler in WWE, would they, like, give him the, like, 1776 treatment like they did here?
I'm checking her wiki page now. She has a degree in psychology and communications. She was psychology, yo.
The irony of that is fantastic. Communications.
She has a sports presenting career that began with the Empire Sports Network hosting the Buffalo Bills NFL show. Oh, what fun. The Buffalo Bills, who only just reached their first playoffs in a millennia. So, eventually preventing an NFL. Outside of sports, she has appeared in shows such as Apartment 23 and Third Rock from the Sun. Apartment 23 I've never heard of. Third Rock from the Sun was a good show, so woo. Yeah.
She didn't have a very big role in that. I don't even remember.
I will say this though. Even though she was kind of, how you say, unimpartial or whatever, she was still much more memorable than Carol Grow in season 2. Like, I'm uploading the season 2 episodes right now. Carol Grow is like watching paint dry. She has nothing to her at all.
So it was literally like they just turned around and said, the UK's pit reporter and the Dutch's pit reporter are both blonde. Let's get a blonde! And that was basically where it stopped. They didn't think past that point. Fuck enthusiasm, she's got blonde hair. Yay!
And she's there to talk to people. I think Happy from who did those little interviews with in that Psycho Chicken video had more enthusiasm. AKA Happy.
I mean, look, she had a reporter background, and she was in some kind of guild, I guess. That's how they get these jobs.
We represent the Psycho Chicken Guild. I don't know.
I mean, I'm talking about the Street Actors Guild or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
So that pretty much covers the presenters. A bit of a mixed bag, but you know what? I enjoy them for what they were in this series. So let's talk about the competitors in this episode. And a lot of the U.S. machines were all banged up from the U.S. Championship, so they had to drive loaner bots. And out of the 8 competitors in this episode, 5 of them were loaner bots. But
5 of them were British.
Yes. Some of them were good, some of them weren't, but you know what? I think the good loaner bots definitely won. Starting off with the first winner, Silver Box. Or as I like to call it, a more stable pussycat.
Or a more battered pussycat.
I don't know. The disc actually did some decent damage. I mean, it completely wrecked Matilda's shell, but it's pretty average.
Decorative fiberglass.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I actually consider it one of the more decent loaner bots because it did some occasional damage. I mean, obviously in the Nickelodeon series when it was Zanzara, it had no chance, but I think for this time it was okay, I guess.
It was one of the more competent ones. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
It's just so bland. Even his name, Silver Bot. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's courteous of them. When you see silver box up on the board, you know, oh, I can go to the concession stand and not miss anything there.
Yeah. One thing that
it was good for what it was though. Fair play.
One thing that kind of bugs me though is the wheels on top. Like, I guess there was if it gets flipped upside down, it'll be able to run inverted, and the disc won't like disrupt its movement. But it's like, what did they do? They have like I guess chains running up to the top little wheels, and I'm looking at the top wheels right now, and it looks like it came right off of a trolley or something. Like what, or one of those little hand trucks that you got. Like, I have a hand truck that I use to carry my gear when I go to events, and it kind of looks like they just took the axle from that and stuck it on top. I don't know. It looks silly, but yeah, it's average. I will say that it's average, and it is driven by Mike Regan, who you may know drove Brute in the U.S. series, and Spaz middleweight champion in BattleBots. So he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. That's fair. We'll probably wipe one, to be honest. A robot is only as good as his driver. Remember that, people.
Exactly. So, moving on to the next winner, another loaner bot, and what is considered the king of loaner bots, King Tutt.
Yeah.
He's the best one by a country mile.
Yeah. Wasn't it because the guy who, I can't remember who it was, I'm not very familiar with the American series, but the guy who was loaned it.
Yeah, Chris Harriman.
Like, this act, that's the one. This axe is crap. I'm sorting that out, and I'm sorting it out now. And he basically upgraded it, so the axe was actually did something, and it was actually a very all-around solid design as well. Because I remember in the tag team, again, sorry, but different episode, I know, but in the tag team battle, it actually drove underneath Runaway and beached it on its side. I mean, that was completely unexpected, especially because how steep the wedge is as well. That was awesome. I mean, okay, Runaway wasn't exactly, a great machine in Robot Wars.
Nah, well, it was it was decent, and I think having a really strong wedge is what helped Tutt out in the end, since a lot of the other loaner bots either had, like, really tiny lifting arms or really lame hex weapons, but this one is just fairly solid. And if I were to compete in Robot Wars, and honestly, even if I did have my own heavyweight, I still wouldn't be able to ship it because it's expensive. I would still compete with either Tutt or, hell, Kadena Machina. Yeah, but... And it did... The axe was really good, I will say. It put holes in Greenhouse, and it actually took out Shunt's speed controller. So Shunt had to be put on the shelf for a good number of battles, so it has power to it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good, very good. I mean, again, you only expect that from a loaner bot, in all fairness.
Yeah.
Fair play. Also, I will admit, it actually, again, unlike a lot of the other loner bots, it actually looked like it represented something well. I mean, the name was good on it, Tutt, Tutankhamun. It actually looked like a pyramid. Even the eye-shaped holes representing where the wheel poked out was a fantastic little touch as well.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah, any last things to say about Tutt?
Only... Sorry, I apologize.
Any pyramid jokes? Because I know Ian, you love to use a lot of gimmicks for your robots. Any gags or anything you want to say about Tricera Bot?
I think it is, without a doubt, the second best Egyptian-based bot in all of robot combat.
Oh yeah? Who's number one?
Quicksand.
Yeah, Quicksand. That's Ian's bot. Little wedge.
Nice one.
Yeah, I don't know. Can we edit in pictures or something?
Hell yeah. I like Quicksand.
Awesome.
It's a
I want to see it.
It's a wedge, but it's got like a bunch of gimmicks on top, like a little quicksand pit
Gimmick is a mean word.
an island, and he's got like pieces of tires on the side. It looks amazing.
When it comes to Tata, people got the point.
Exactly.
They got points on it. No.
Yeah. So.
Hey, go. That should do it. I just put a picture in chat.
Yeah, look at it. It's got its third place trophy right there in the remote. It's really cool.
Awesome, dude.
Oh, thank you.
So that pretty much covers Tutt. Now let's move on to who I consider the MVP of this episode, the paper bag monster itself, Tricera Bot.
The true winner.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was a draw. Was it bollocks? All right? There was one robot in this. There was one robot that deserved to be called a winner in this one. It was this. All right? It's the only... I was just surprised by the amount of power this thing had.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say that in Robotica, one of the tasks was to move this extremely heavy safe, like just shove it about 10 feet to get to the end.
And it just pushes it like nothing. Like, this is, I believe, the second version of Juggerbot. Like, the first version is Rosie the Riveter. But this version, it's much more powerful, and you may think it's just complete pants, considering that it's got paper bags for armor and cardboard and all these other weird decorations. But this thing has power, and you would have never thought that those tiny little spikes on the front would be able to flip a house robot onto its side. But you know what? Looks are deceiving.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the physics of that.
It's what I'd call a wolf in sheepskin. Like, it looks like nothing on the outside, but on the inside it's a powerhouse. I mean, and isn't this the robot as well that also in Robotica Season 3, I think it was, got the quickest battle record, or Fight to the Fringe record again?
That was actually the 3.0 version, which we'll see in Season 2, but this is the regular Season 2 version.
Close enough. Huh?
Yeah. Close enough, you say?
Speaking of which, yeah.
Actually, no, we'll talk about the last winner, and that's the original Juggerbot, Rosie the Riveter. Which...
That's another thing I realized about the American series. There's a lot of robots were from the same teams.
Yeah, like...
And a lot of them. I mean, you look at the same team that entered, oh God, was it Propeller Head? And there's like 5 robots attached to it. Like, what? Come on, guys. But yeah, you see a lot of the same robots being entered.
Well, basically the story behind Rosie is, this was Juggerbot 1.0 in Season 1 of Robotica. Then Chris Gatman, who was part of Juggerbot, split to create his own team, and he brought Juggerbot 1 with him. He painted it yellow with wings and a little tiny-ass battering ram, which did some occasional damage, but wasn't all that hugely effective. And unfortunately, and you don't notice it much in this episode, but they were definitely having speed controller issues. So when you watch it in the later episodes, you can just see it going forwards and backwards very slowly, and one of their speed controllers were acting up, so unfortunately, Rosie's performance in the Season 1 was a bit of a mixed bag. But, yeah, you know what? I think the team made up for it in a way.
Yeah.
Looks like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon up there.
Yeah. This is Rosie Bot actually has like this little soft spot in my heart because it's actually one of the very first US Robot Wars robots I actually saw. It was a video uploaded even more years ago now I think about it, and it was its battle against Night Stalker and Basenji.
Yeah, that was when it had the wedge.
Yeah, just that battle. But yeah, it was the first robot I ever, well, basically the first robot I ever saw, and of course it dominated that battle really well. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
What do you think of Whole Lotta Rosie, Ian?
Awesome rammer, like Anderson said, the way it just rammed Night Stalker part where it, I think crumpled it or something like this large. And about the fight itself, love those dubbed sound effects. How
Oh my God.
Rosie slamming into a wooden robot sounds like somebody banging on a hollow metal.
The sound effects in Extreme Warriors, especially Season 1, are so bad. Like, they're basically reusing the Season 2 sound effects, like when Close Enough gets flipped, or in the multiple times in the Tutt greenhouse match, you can hear those obvious stock crash sound effects, like glass is breaking inside the thing.
Yeah, like in the Series 2 of Robot Wars, when every time a robot hit another one, it had a bolt fall off of it.
Yeah, but Rosie, I think, it had a good showing. Even though it didn't do a whole lot in the actual rebellion, I think it performed decently, and even had a little pop at Refbot at one point. So, yeah. But that pretty much covers all the winners of this particular rebellion. Let's move on to the losers, starting with literally the biggest loser, the only robot in this episode who isn't a Juggerbot or a Loner Bot. Close Enough. What the hell is this
I
thing?
didn't even beat the Loner Bot.
What? It's a brick that's powered by gas, which is a big red flag there, considering those things like to stall out. And guess what happened? It stalled out right as it got in the arena.
Maybe it was like they had $5 and one day to build it.
I mean, the one positive I can say about it is that it's big, so you can't really flip it over. But other than that, the teeth suck. The engine's just stalled out on it. There's really not much to say about it.
Looking at them, I just looked this up. The surprise they did with the turbine for a start. I didn't know that. Anyway, that's one of the two things I didn't know. And the team called themselves "Grown Men Don't Need Instructions."
Well,
obviously they do. Look at the damn thing.
yeah.
Why was he even called Close Enough?
Maybe
Why name your robot that?
maybe they.
What they said when they were putting it together loads of times.
I don't know. Maybe they were trying to put a weapon on it, but then they realized. I don't know. Let's just stick these teeth on it. Close enough.
Well, I mean, you know what's really bad as well is that they were in a battle against the robot called the Silver Bot, and it somehow manages to be the less interesting robot out of
Other than that, it's just a brick. It's just a brick that doesn't work.
If you're gonna be a brick, be Drillzilla. Go on. That did it well.
Yeah.
I love Drillzilla.
I have feelings for Drillzilla. The only problem is, I think, with the weight advantage, it's a little bit unfair. And only a brick wall could stop it. Its name was Razor.
We don't mention that name.
But
I'm joking.
yeah, there's not much else to say about Close Enough, except it is one of the widest robots, I think, that's been around, at least until Medusa. But yeah, there's nothing else to say about it.
Spot Ugly was pretty wide as well.
Yeah. It was extra wide and extra thick. But yeah. An extra crap. Yeah, that covers Close Enough. So let's move on to the other Loner Bot, and one that doesn't really show much here, but it does have more success in the Nickelodeon series as Vertigo. It is the Greenhouse. It's the Greenhouse.
Terrible.
I don't know.
Not the worst.
It's basically a polycarbonate box with a lifting arm that really can't do anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, give it credit. It lifted Tata.
And then it ran out of gas.
Yes. We're noticing a pattern here. The gas isn't a good thing to power your robots on anymore, I'm sorry. Go back to Series 3.
I don't know. I mean, it's a thing. I mean, it wouldn't have done a damn thing in the actual rebellion if it had made it, but I don't know.
Again, as far as loader bots go, it's probably one of the more structurally okay machines. I guess. I mean, it's got a working weapon that actually can lift something. It's relatively well armored for the time. But it's a loader bot.
Yeah.
It's got so many glaring errors. It's unreal.
Yeah, but... And speaking of Bot Ugly, this was in fact driven by the Bot Ugly team from Tyler, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know that either.
So, yeah, that's the greenhouse. Now let's move on to the green mouse.
Oh, yeah, that was a bit stupid, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
Well, essentially, it's two similar names, and it's basically a very similar design, except the green mouse has more armor to it, and of course the green fur. But
no. Green mouse
Can't lift things.
Well,
yeah, it can't lift things. That's exactly it. It's half its robot is the lifter, and because there's no base plate under the lifter, it lifts, and its body just flies in the air.
it's basically the same thing as the greenhouse, because if you look at underneath it, you can tell it has the same kind of lifting arm design, but since there's virtually nothing supporting it underneath it, it really couldn't, like, lift anything. But it burned up very nicely.
Yes. I think that's the only redeeming quality it had. They like Tiger Cat, really.
Yeah. And this was driven by Evan White, who competed with Shuriken and Ninjutsu, so this is the one robot that doesn't have a ninja gimmick to it. It's just a big green mouse.
Did they call it the Ninja Mouse? That would have been cool. That would
You
have
know,
been cool. Give it like put some foam sabers on it.
If there wasn't already a Splinter in Robot Wars, they probably have named it Splinter after the Ninja Turtles mouse.
Yeah. Cool. That would have been amazing. Yes. Clever names. I like it. We need more of them. That's one thing that Robot Wars lacks. Clever names.
Maybe they're just afraid of copyright or something.
I suppose. Maybe that's more than likely. I will say this though, they've definitely put the green mouse against the right robot.
Yeah.
Because of all the loader bots, it was probably the weakest. So it's good that they put it in there with a robot that could at least put on a good show.
Exactly. And speaking of really cheap loaner bots, let's move on to the one. I don't know. I kind of consider this the weakest, just the fact that it broke down under pressure. Rockbox. It's made of wood. It's wood.
It's got the name Rot in the title. Rot is in the title. Rot is not a good thing. Rot is bad. If you have a piece of wood furniture and it is going rotten or rotting, throw it out. That's not a good thing. And to be honest, they probably should have thrown this out as well. Because didn't they go on to become Bang?
Yeah, the team loved this loaner bot so much that they brought it back. I don't get it. Yeah. It's a box, it's made of wood, and it has, like, this ridiculous-looking Morningstar mace on the top. I don't know.
That tact robot.
Yeah.
It didn't hit them.
I don't know.
It just poked them.
Ian, what do you think? What do you think of this thing?
I think they got one good hit on Rosie.
And then it broke.
Gotta give him credit for that. I don't know, it's novel. I give him that much.
Yeah.
Too bad it didn't go up in flames.
Well, it kind of did. It burned up. At least the wood kind of burned up nicely, so.
It's a shame it wasn't actually put up against Tutt. I would like to see that axe go against the wood robot.
Yeah, it would put some nice holes in it. But, yeah, this is not good. Out of all the loner bots I've seen, this is probably my least favorite, unfortunately.
That's understandable.
But I will say it does fit the Mad Cowbot gimmick of just finding something in a shed and just putting it together, and it's a redneck robot, basically. I don't know.
Redneck Someone of the best role was a redneck machine.
Yeah, but
I'd actually quite like the cowboy. He had a competent weapon.
it did? Or we're talking about... Actually, believe it or not, here's the story. The Season 2 version of Mad Cowbot, which was the drum center, was actually... It was built by the Mad Cowboys, but it was driven by... what's his name? Who's been... he's been in a few events. Think Tank.
He made Ted Shimoda.
Mike Shimoda, was it? Ted Shimoda, yeah.
Isn't he the guy who made the three-wheeled robot from Robotica, the one that flipped
Yes,
around
it did.
and
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He's built some good machines.
Oh,
And in the U.S. Championship, they had the Mad Cow, which was just an ugly-looking cow that breathed smoke and had a wedge. And then it would go on to become Psycho Chicken. So, you know,
there was foul play with that robot.
You know, when I review that episode, I'm just gonna play the cow and chicken theme at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yes. But yeah, that pretty much covers all the competitors. Let's move on to the matches, and this first match, should we even call it a match?
Match.
This exemplifies why I question why that they made this episode the first episode of this series, because it starts with a robot that just breaks down, and then Silverbox gets some hits in on it, and then basically Shunt and Matilda have their way with it.
It was just. Can you call it a battle? Can you? I mean, you should technically, because both moved forward and they did come into contact with one another, but that's about as far as it went.
I will. There is one thing. The only other notable thing I will say about this match is they played the Sir Kill-A-Lot theme, which is, I believe, this is the first out of only 2 times they play it as battle music. And I like the Sir Kill-A-Lot theme. It's even though, as we later find out, it's not his official theme.
No.
We don't talk about.
Well. I played it at the beginning. But yeah, this basically close enough broke down, got flipped, went up on the flame pit, and burned up quite nicely, I will say.
Redeeming
quality it had.
That's what you get when you bring gas petrol engines into an arena filled with flames. Petrol in this arena, boom.
I didn't know you had Jonathan Pearson there with you.
Yeah. But yes, Silverbox gets the victory pretty easily, honestly. And now we move on to Lonerbot versus Lonerbot, Greenhouse versus Tutt. And actually, this was a pretty decent match, I thought.
Yeah. Well, both roles work.
Yeah.
He had a bit of back and forth, but obviously, you know, they both got attacks from each other. I mean, Greenhouse nearly flipped Tutt over. And Tutt, if I'm right in thinking, couldn't self-right.
No.
Now, Tutt, for those of you who don't know, is one of only, I think, 3 robots that has never lost a battle. Four. Count Slicer.
Slicer, Hannibal, and for a while, Cadena Machina. Unfortunately, Dietor kind of ruined that streak. But
Ultor, if you count.
Ultor and Anvil.
Oh yeah, and Scar. And Scar.
Good friend of my own.
18 years. That streak is still going strong. Yeah. This was a decent match. Greenhouse got some lifts in, but then the flipper ran out of gas. Tutt got some hits in, and actually did a good job controlling Greenhouse. It got it into the CPZ and into almost fell down the pit at one point, unfortunately. But I guess that's what happens when you got a very wide robot. And I'm looking at the picture now. You can see it's got the typical loner bot base plate under it. You can see where the electronics go and where I guess the CO2 system goes. But yeah, this wasn't like a super ultra explosive match. But you know what? Some matches don't have to be that. This isn't Supernova versus Cadena Machina or something like that. Just a good back and forth match.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I like. I mean, a lot of people, there's what I like to say, there's two types of English fans. There's, oh my god, that damage! Fans, who, if it isn't literally been sprawled across the arena, they're not interested. And then there's the other fans where they look at it from all sorts of different areas. And I like to think of one of them, really, because I do like Metallica, don't get me wrong, but I like close fought battles. I like it when both robots give it a good try. And this one, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it wasn't, you know, like Contact versus Firestorm or anything like that, but it was a good little tactical battle. And fair play to both teams, especially Tutt, very well driven, and they deserve respect for that. They deserve respect for that at the end of the day, because they performed better than the first bloody battle. I just like it when bots work. I mean, what kills me most of all is just any kind of weapon that just does not work. It's like frustrating. So, I mean, I'll take a less than actual battle as long as they do as much as they're designed to do, like their full potential.
And the last thing to note about this episode is that I believe it's the only Robot Wars match to have the shunt theme. Or as I like to call it, the Booyah theme.
If you play the Robot Wars games, that's the one that they use in the steel mill.
Or, actually, it's the one they play in... I have Arenas of Destruction, and they play it during the Siberia match. So.
Oh, do they? Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Booyah, Cyborg.
Oh, yeah, I know which one you mean.
But, yeah, Tutt managed to get the victory by getting its axe right into Greenhouse and just pushing it right into the pit, so good stuff. And now we move on to the battle of the completely flammable bots, Tricera Bot versus Green Mouse. It's a match.
This was a Pyrotex bloody wet dream, this was, let's be fair. Yeah.
Just stick Detour in there and boom, you're guaranteed to have flames.
Sergeant Bash and a nice can of petrol.
Did you notice Sergeant Bash wasn't even in this episode? You'd think with these two bots in it, they would at least have him in there.
Exactly.
I don't know.
That would have made more sense. Shame. This is definitely one of the more entertaining battles, just because Tricera Bot owns life. Let's be fair. Tricera Bot is there.
He got another, flip that we can't even figure out how he did that.
He just rammed into it. He says, I'm just going to end my life now and roll over for you. Oh, mighty Triceratops warrior.
Basically, Green Mouse just decided to try to leap over the paper bag, and then Tricera Bot just got in and speared it over, basically.
I tell you what, that little attack actually reminds me of. It reminds me a lot of Firestorm versus Crasher Nasher from Series 3. Just drove into it, and that was it.
Yeah, kind of does.
Thanks for coming, lads. Bye.
I will give Green Mouse credit. It actually worked, unlike the second Rebellion, where... Well, it eventually returns as Squirmin' Vermin in the Nickelodeon series, and it doesn't do jack shit. I think it lost drive, and then that was it.
Yeah. Well, they didn't catch fire. They turned the flame pit off of the Nickelodeon, didn't they?
They turned it into CO2 because flames are too dangerous. I don't know.
And Sir K, because the fact that, children were in teams beforehand and they were okay to say Sir K like that fire, it's a stupid thing.
They call him Sir K in both the games and in the magazine. So
Sir K was actually one of the Knights of the Round Table, so it kind of works.
Yeah, sure.
Sir K-A-Y.
They're more than happy to keep the word dead in there, though, weren't they?
And for whatever reason in Grand Champions, they call the kill cam K-cam. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, I do know that, like, back in the 90s, America, like, telling someone, "You're dead meat," was such a ubiquitous expression that they really couldn't, there really wouldn't be any big deal to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So,
Something that kills a lot, I guess, might be a little bit too risque for an audience.
Crush, kill, destroy, swag.
yeah, coming up after this, Rocco's Modern Life.
Oh my god! I watched some of the old episodes. My god, they get away with so much.
Oh, yeah.
Choky chicken, Balzac. I swear.
Oh baby, Rocco.
So basically,
I was a very naive kid. I thought, like, that sounds ironic, but they wouldn't put that on a kid's show. I must be mishearing. That was me at 12.
So yeah, this match basically, Green Mouse got a lift, but couldn't flip it over. Dead Metal decided to take a bite out of Tricera Bot and got one of those little decorations off. Green Mouse hits the pit button, almost goes into the hole, and then just tries to flip Tricera Bot, but ends up getting flipped over. And then Tricera Bot decides to make Green Mouse extra crispy, and we get a very delightfully burnt mouse at the end. So this was entertaining. I enjoyed it.
As a spectacle, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Just the pure funny and funness of it. The fact, I mean, like I said, I like close battles, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's nice to see one robot get absolutely annihilated.
Exactly.
It's just so funny. But at least they tried. I give them that.
So the final eliminator was Rosie the Riveter versus Rockbox, and I will give Rockbox credit. They got one good hit. They at least waited for a good hit, and then that was it.
Which is partially attributed to Rosie's speed controller things.
This was one of the few times where Rosie actually worked. It slammed Rockbox around. Rockbox got a flat tire. I have no idea how.
I mean, they're filled with air.
Pneumatic tires. And then Rosie decides, okay, I can't wait for the rebellion. I'm going to attack RefBot.
Why not?
That was really funny.
I always wanted to smack RefBot anyway.
Oh, everybody does. People, believe it or not, there are people who want to see RefBot back, and I'm like, why?
Well, I admit, when they actually had something to do, like Series 5 onwards, when they actually had Encounter, it was like, I quite liked that because it was sort of like a certainty that a robot was finally out. But at the same time, if you're going to have this new rule where the robot's dead for 10 seconds, they're out anyway, what's the freaking point in having him there to begin with? You may as well, I mean, by the time they've realised it's dead, and got RefBot to drive its ass over to the damn robot, it would have been deemed immobile anyway, so what's the point?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a formality, but from a TV perspective, it makes it easier for the audience to follow.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess it was nice as a spectacle sort of thing. I mean, it's like, it's like in wrestling or boxing. I mean, you wouldn't know who won unless there was a referee there. I guess it's sort of the same thing.
Problem is the referee always got in the way, and you might as well say that RefBot took a ref bump. There you go. But yeah, Rockbox got a flat tire, just completely broke down, and Kill-A-Lot, who makes his first appearance in this episode, and did anybody notice that Kill-A-Lot is missing half his breastplate which was probably from the fire, from the tornado pussycat?
No, I didn't actually.
Yeah, it's like completely torn up, so, yeah.
Oh, where do you think it got ripped off from?
When it got set up on fire during the tornado pussycat match, and it burned away half the fiberglass.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Bad times.
Good battle, that.
Yeah, I like that battle, and Kill-A-Lot got a little hot under the collar. And speaking of, so, yeah, Rockbox pretty much got obliterated, basically, and so we're going into the final rebellion, and there is actually a really cool story by Mike Morrow, the builder of Juggerbot, or Tricera Bot. You know those bars that they have attached to the Juggerbots at the back? Those were meant to set fire. They were basically like little decorations they had on the side, and I believe that they covered them in gas or something. So they were going to use them to set fire to kill a lot if he came close to him. But obviously they didn't work. So, but before we get to the actual final match, we get a long video package for Matilda and Shunt. Because we needed filler. Because after the Eliminators, it's time for filler.
I think the idea was to bring those toys. Like the Shunt Matilda toys.
Yeah, definitely. But it kind of works because at the end of the day, this again, it's a new audience. You want to introduce them, but the thing is, why don't you do it for those two? Like, if you wanted to,
because they're the robots that are going to be in the rebellion. Like,
I know, but that's what I know. But that's what I'm saying. We already know what the freaking house robots are. We've seen them now for the last 4 battles. Come on. You don't need this.
I think
if you're going to do this, put it at the beginning and show us all the house robots just to get the new audience used to it, then start the battle.
I think it's again trying to be like WWE, where you have a video package showcasing what they can do. It's kind of like you watch WWE and you see like Braun Strowman just power bombing everybody and stuff. So, or Roman Reigns hitting spears. Yeah, but we'll talk about the Royal Rumble when we're done. We'll give our thoughts on who might actually win. And one thing I find really funny, a couple things to note about the video package. All the footages of Series 4, which has Matilda with her chainsaw, which they say is interchangeable, although she doesn't have it until Season 2, and even then she doesn't even use it. And they say that both Shunt and Matilda have never before seen prototype cold fusion motors. What the hell are those?
Sounds real to me.
I think they just
Well, it's like,
reworked
Shunt apparently had a diamond edged axe and a cold fusion engine. And then people actually thought they actually had a diamond coated axe. No.
I thought it was just diamond shaped. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But Ian, you on the wiki, you made a list.
Oh, that's the only thing, yeah.
We're going back a few years now, but you did the Robot Wars Myths one, and people actually believed. And because I was like, people actually thought that was coated noise. It was reading that actually made me realise people thought that. Jesus Christ.
And the last thing to note is when Stefon is going through them, he mentions that one of the key features of Matilda is the toughness of her skin. Her fiberglass shell is more resilient to attacks than steel. Bullshit. That is bullshit.
The thing popped off.
Yeah, I mean, Silverbox damaged it.
Silverbox damaged it.
I know you meant to dig the house robots up, but you can't be that thick. You can't turn around and say that fiberglass is tougher than steel. No. Sorry, I've got a new robot, yeah, it's got paper on it, but this is going to do anything. Oh, I'm like, no, bollocks. Sorry.
I think Jonathan Pierce would still say she's extra thick regardless. So.
Well, and not necessarily important.
Oh God.
And there was when Eleanor lost against, and Slice, I think. And there's a literally bit when Matilda hits Eleanor with her fly and goes, "Come on, baby, shove it out there." I love how it caught him.
So we'll move on to the final rebellion. Silverbox, Tutt, Tricera Bot, and Rosie versus Matilda and Shunt. First off, are you guys aware that this match is 4-on-2 advantage baby faces?
I know.
You know what a baby.
A baby face is a good guy in wrestling.
Yeah.
And then it's a villain.
Like, obviously, I guess you want to. I don't know. Like, I don't know, maybe if Dead Metal was in this match, maybe it could have been more interesting, because, let's be honest here, Matilda didn't do a damn thing in this match.
Apart from roll over.
She got, basically, the match was just Tricera Bot trying to ram into Matilda's ass. And, yeah.
And he did.
Yeah. I see what you did there. Yeah. So basically, it's the battle of the Tricera Bots. Tricera Bot versus Matilda. Battle of the Axes, Tutt versus Shunt, which was a nice little scrap. Rosie didn't do a goddamn thing, because they were still broken from the War of Independence match with Pussycat, and Silverbox got some good slice marks on Matilda, which completely exposes the fact that fiberglass is not better than steel. Well done. And so basically it's just complete anarchy in the first minute. Tricera Bot's driving all around. He gets one of Rosie's wings stuck to his spike. Then blah, blah, blah. Several rams later, Tricera Bot finally runs itself straight up Matilda's ass, knocks her on her side. Bye-bye, Matilda.
Sorry.
See, Jason? That is how you run into Matilda's ass, not whatever the heck you did in that Thor match. Yeah, but
Oh, for God's sake.
and believe it or not, and even though Matilda is always the easiest house robot to flip sometimes, Tricera Bot is the only robot in the old series that managed to get Matilda over once she got her flywheel. Thermidor 2 couldn't do it. Firestorm just ended up running right into the disc and broke his flipper. I don't know. I think people were just scared of the flywheel.
Yeah, once Matilda got the flywheel, it was, I'm right in thinking Bash then became the most brilliant house robot, which makes sense considering it's thinner than Goat and very unstable and used to flip.
Yeah. Also, the flamethrower doesn't actually do much, but don't tell the audience. You'll
Honestly,
innocent.
let's be honest, Matilda she wasn't in good form in this match. Her flywheel was spinning very slowly. The tusks didn't do anything. It
took them a while, I think, to really get the flywheel done properly. I mean, a lot of series, apart from, I think, a couple of times where it hit a robot, it didn't really, it was always either spinning really slowly or just scuffed them. Okay, with Firestorm flipper off, but it wasn't until Series 6 where we really saw that new killer instinct by the flywheel.
actually, I think in Series 5 it was really damn good. How it just murdered Rohog and... What was the name of that? Is Kryptonite?
Fiberglass, man, come on.
Yeah, well. So Matilda's on her side. Shunt is completely helpless. Tricera Bot rams him like nothing. And then, this wasn't actually seen, because hello editing, but Tutt actually put its axe right through Shunt's armor, hit the speed controller. Shunt is dead. So it looks like it's a victory for the competitors. And then all of a sudden... Daniel Bryan does a run-in. There is a good reason why I put this moment at number 1 on top 5 smegged up moments of Robot Wars, just because of how completely ridiculous this was. Just like...
Well, the fact that there was so much smoke you couldn't even see it.
more smoke than the fog of war.
Just this big moment, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
You don't see anything for like a minute because it's just smoke. All right then, lads. Okay.
So Tricera Bot hits the pit button. Kill-A-Lot decides to go for Silverbox and decides, all right, you're going in the pit first. Big mistake, because Tricera Bot does the classic ramming up the ass move, and Kill-A-Lot goes right on his face.
He's Billy Gunn. I just realised Tricera Bot is Billy Gunn. He's an ass man.
And you guys know that, like, he did get him in the pit. They just edited that out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, obviously. They don't want to ruin the credibility of the house robot straight away. Which, again, kind of ruins the whole point of putting this on first. Why not put it on last? Because then the audience can get a relationship with the house robots and realise, God, these things are awesome. And then as the series ends, oh, wait, the competitors own it. No, let's just make them look really weak in the first episode. Fuck's sake.
Yeah. So...
I mean, I think it would have had to be more even match for it to, like, close the series out in that way.
They didn't, my cut doesn't have it, but right after the end credits, Mike Morrow says, next time bring all the house bots in, because, let's be honest, it would have been more fair if it was like 5 competitors versus 5 house robots. In fact, if they do have a Series 11, and if they do decide to bring Bash back or something, have a 5-on-5. Apollo, Gabriel, Big Nipper, Behemoth, I don't know. Worm? Oh, hell yeah, Worm.
Well, just to make it fair.
Yeah. And so, the last 30 seconds of this was just Tricera Bot wedge under Kill-A-Lot. Tutt tries to get the axe in, can't do anything. Rosie tries to push him in, nothing. And eventually he does end up in the pit, but they end up raising the pit to try and get him out. But it's to no avail. He's stuck there, and finally time runs out. And so we decide to find out what the judge's decision is. And all Mick Foley says is, there is no victor. Bull fucking shit. Matilda's flipped over.
You see, it's funny, right, because from what I can see, it was quite clearly a winner there.
Yeah. I think the idea was it was supposed to come down to whoever was left alive, like the Extreme Rebellion. But basically, three of the machines, I guess, because I don't know if Tutt broke down at the end there, but basically, Tutt and Rosie were still, or not Tutt, but Tricera Bot and Rosie were still mobile. But
I mean, like, let's be honest. The plan was never to say that the competitors won that, no matter what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, unless all the house show was upside down and there was nothing left of them and they were on fire and spontaneous, and even then they say,
then they just bring in another one and it's a tie.
So
they bring in Sean.
it really begs the question, for the Extreme Rebellion, why not just bring Kill-A-Lot in? What was the point of bringing Matilda in?
Well,
What's honest, they didn't even need to. This is actually quite interesting. Actually, this shows you the difference here, right? In the UK Extreme Rebellion, you had 2 house robots against 3 robots, and they had no. And the 2 house robots owned the battle to the point where when Matilda came into the arena, Thunderbird had already been pitted, and as Matilda entered the arena, Scorpion was pitted by Shun. So what was the point? You didn't need Matilda in there, so why did you bring her in?
Yeah, I'm honestly not a big fan of that rebellion. Like, I prefer the ones where it's actually close. Like the Series 7 one where Growler and Cassius Chrome got flipped over and Mr. Psycho fell asleep. And
very underrated battle.
I think this is my favorite rebellion, just for the crazy factor for it, and I thought this was a really fun match. Just everybody going around, ramming each other. The Kill-A-Lot entrance was completely over the top, but I laughed, and yeah,
seems like a thing that would happen in wrestling. I guess that's why they did it.
Yeah. And obviously, this is meant to be Robot Wars meets WWE. All the costumes, all the cartoon characters and whatnot, but
the gimmicks, the over-the-top acting. Oh God, the acting. And I'm using acting in the loosest sense of the term.
I would say I think the acting in the reboot is much better. Like, you got all the competitors doing the interviews and whatnot. I look forward to breaking the hopes and dreams of children. Robot Wars wouldn't be the same without Behemoth. Or
It's like Anthony Pritchard's in the room. It's literally like I'm right next to him.
or Tim. I don't know. I'm gonna try to do my best Tim voice. Concussion. It's a drum spinner. I don't know. We need Tim back. We need Tim back. We need Series 11, and we need Tim as a guest again.
I just think we've had 3 series of our reboot on that BattleBox.
Oh!
Sorry, twist the knife a little bit there, sorry.
But yeah, other than that, I really enjoyed this episode. Like, some of the Eliminator matches weren't much, but I think both the teams and I think the overall final were just really made up for it.
Ian's not going to understand this reference, but hopefully you will. I see this episode as very much like Great American Bash '89, in that the first battle, the first couple of battles, weren't anything out of this world, but at the end of the second half of the episode really saved it. Especially the main event, obviously, which was the Rebellion.
I gotta check this out list for a second. Road Warriors, Ric Flair versus Terry Funk. That sounds like a hell of a show. I haven't even seen it.
Yeah, have you never seen it?
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
Come on, man.
I'll watch it after the Royal Rumble tonight. Any idea who's winning the Rumble?
Not a clue.
I want to say Nakamura, because I want to see him face AJ.
That would be nice. That would be nice. Plus, it would also be nice because they would have. I mean, it'd be the first time since Del Rio, I think, where they'll have had a. Or was Sheamus? Oh no, Sheamus. Sorry, they'll allow someone who's not an American win it.
There you go. Or Finn Balor. I mean, Nate hates Finn Balor, but I still like him. I like his paint, and he has good matches. He can have a good. He's probably like AJ Styles managed to get a good match out of Brock, but I don't think Finn's gonna win. I think that they want a big scary guy to face Brock, so Roman is. I think Roman's probably going to face Brock. I don't think he's going to win the Rumble, but he's going to win maybe the #1 contender spot in Elimination Chamber or whatever pay-per-view they got next. So, I don't know. You know what? I like Roman a lot more than I used to, probably because they're not having him cut those stupid promos anymore.
Where is that?
I like it because basically Jason Jordan is now the scapegoat because with this stupid Kurt Angle son gimmick. So, yeah. Ian has no idea what we're talking about.
No, I agree with what you said.
But yeah, overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give it an 8. How about you guys?
8?
I don't know. I was entertained. Like the matches weren't fantastic, but I was really entertained by it.
I mean, if I'm being completely honest, my score is a lot lower. I'd give it like a 3.
Whoa!
I mean, wow. I mean, it was just disappointing all around. Like, disappointing for the people, for Mike Morrow especially, who didn't get his proudest moment on television. Disappointment for the kids who were there expecting to see Razor, Hypnotist, and or Chaos.
Oh, don't be a fanboy. This is a new generation. Don't be Stuart Gibson.
I mean, you know what I mean. Like, I mean, imagine yourself, like going to Robot Wars at that time, not knowing what you're gonna get, and coming up with these. Like, I mean, we don't think very highly of the loner bots, but this set being a majority loner bot thing. I mean, we had very few like actual good moments like that made me really leap out of my seat with excitement. I mean, it's like you said, a lot of bumping and banging with really the occasional tiny speck of gold in a good moment.
Well, you know, there can be good Rambot versus Rambot matches. Like I've seen Quicksand's matches with all those D2 kits.
I appreciate that. And I mean, my favorites are the ones that, I mean, in my opinion, are the ones that, like, are either one-sided or end in KO.
Yeah. What do you think of this episode, Anderson?
I'm gonna go 7. I realised that when it comes to episode Wars, there's 2 things you've got to judge it from. Battle quality and spectacle.
Yeah.
Spectacle being obviously the crazy over-the-top shit that happens, and obviously the battle quality is obviously, you know, whether it's... For example, I mean, I wouldn't call this versus Splinter a good battle, I'd call it a spectacle, because it wasn't really a major fight, it was just one that would get ripped to pieces. I think this episode mainly is saved by spectacle alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that last battle was just so crazy and so weird and zany. That immediately adds a couple of points onto it, especially straight away for me. But yeah, I think 8's a little too high. I think 3's a little harsh.
Yeah.
I think a good 7. Maybe 6.5, 7, somewhere around. Probably about 7. 8's about 7, so I'll go with 7.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I suppose
that
that adds to what you said about the considerations.
Quantity
Quantity is perhaps a big one for me. Like, I don't think I can ever rate an episode like extremely high if I've come to expect a lot of that in an hour and only get a few.
Yeah, but that pretty much covers this first episode, and I think it started the series off well. But yeah, and I think it showed what some of the U.S. bots can do, particularly the Jugger bots, and that pretty much covers it. And the next episode was, believe it or not, the first Robot Wars episode I ever watched. It's the Annihilator.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
so
Drillzilla's debut.
Drillzilla's debut for everybody in this episode, pretty much.
Well, yeah. But Drillzilla was the only one that mattered. Well, I guess Conquering Clown.
The clown.
Oh yeah.
Clown's awesome.
Yeah, when I have free time, hopefully I'll be able to get Nate to join us, and maybe a few UK guys. Hopefully we'll get Jim back. And unfortunately, we were going to have him join us, but unfortunately he was busy. So I don't know, and maybe Jim will do his own reviews of these episodes too. I'd like to hear what he has to think.
Maybe.
I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, I think we all would.
So, I'm still uploading the season 2 episodes. I'm up to Heat H, aka the Shit Heat, so, which features such.
Remind me which one.
And it features one of only 2 U.S. champions in existence, Tricera Bot.
Yeah. I think actually that might have been because they were originally only going to do 4, and then when they looked at their inventory, they said, hey, we have enough for 8 heats, let's do it. And unfortunately, that meant all the good ones were already assigned.
So yeah, that pretty much covers this episode. Hopefully we'll see some more robot fighting. And also, later on in April, me and Ian are going to be going to Robo Games in California. That should be fun.
Oh yeah.
We're going to be seeing a lot of famous bots there, like Last Rites and Foxic and King Bee Powerworks. So
Looking forward to it.
yeah.
I mean, it's like Foxic versus Mr. Speed Squared. Underrated Foxic. 5 stars.
I've actually been, and I've been thinking, if Simon lets me drive King Bee, I'm gonna have a War of Independence match with Foxic. That'll be a 6 1/4 star match right there.
Oh yeah.
I can imagine why it wasn't game for you to have more of independence against Last Rites.
Well, it'd be, the king would be dead. Like, I'm sorry. Like Simon, I think Simon said he wants to go out with a bang, and having King Bee fight Last Rites is the ultimate. It's a execution, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
Don't need to bang right away.
But yeah, that covers this episode. We'll stay tuned for more hardcore. I forgot my own name. Stay tuned for more hardcore podcasts in the near future. Annihilators, maybe some wrestling reviews here and there. And any last minute plugs before we sign off?
Well, I haven't got anything to plug, so no.
Ian?
Yes, as always, please visit my YouTube channel, Resetty's Replicas. I assume Brandon will do us the courtesy of putting it in the description box. The New Blood tournament should be coming sometime in the spring, and will feature one of the robots that we had here today.
Awesome.
You'll have to watch, see which one.
Okay.
In all honesty, guys, this guy's replicas are freaking.
Yeah, I love him.
I actually, when I found out I was actually going to be on this with him today, I actually got a little giddy because I've been watching his videos now for years. So I was like, ooh.
You better send him an autograph, Ian.
Oh, sure.
Please, what kind of autograph? Or what do you want autographed?
Anything. I don't know.
Print out a picture of what's your favorite Robot Wars body, Ian or Anderson? Ian Anderson. Dur, 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 dur.
Yeah, here, why don't you put your address up in the podcast?
No address. You don't need doxing, please.
Post, put my bank account details in for you.
Oh, yeah, then I can direct deposit my autograph.
You never know who I might dox, so y'all can suck on my cocks.
Oh, that.
Alright, so until next time, I'm the hardcore kid.
I'm Rossetti.
I'm Rossetti.
And I'm that British twat that doesn't shut up.
Until next time, peace out. And unfortunately, Nate isn't here for any last-minute zingers, so... Anything? Make a wrestling reference.
There you go. He likes ice hockey.
There you go. Alright. Peace out, guys.
Peace.